Hi, I'm Becky from Let's Make Geek Stuff, and today I'm making this helmet that was inspired by Bo-Katan's helmet in the TV show The Mandalorian. What I love about this EVA Foam helmet is that it's easy to make, it has sleek lines that won't show up too much once it's painted, it's very light, and it's just cool. Let's go! I'm just going to talk you through the making of this helmet. I'm using a anti-fatigue EVA foam mats, 1 centimeter thick, that are available at many hardware stores. You'll want a Dremel or other kind of sanding tool. A heat source like a heat gun is ideal, or a really hot blow dryer. A bandsaw is not critical. I know most people don't have those at their house, but it sure does make it so much easier. But if you don't have a bandsaw, you just need really sharp box cutter with brand new blades. I'm using a pattern that is for sale on my Etsy shop. You'll need to print it out on cardstock. Some of the pieces you'll need to tape together. And when you lay out your pattern, some of the pieces are right and left sides, so you'll need to make two, but in mirror image. So lay out your patterns, trace them out, make sure to label them, make sure to mark every notch, because those are going to become critical later. You will thank yourself. Cutting out the pieces on the bandsaw. Bandsaw makes it so much easier. To make the bevels, you just tilt the table. If you don't have a bandsaw with a tilting table, you can cut these by hand. Just use a sharp knife, an exacto knife, put your foam at the end of a table, the edge of a table, and eyeball and cut the bevels. And then using a sanding barrel on a Dremel, you can make any adjustments as you put that together. Here I'm showing you that I have transferred the markings to every piece that I've cut. They're all labeled and ready to go. And I'm showing you the cheek pieces. They have some pretty tricky bevels. I give you all the dimensions on the pattern piece, but I think it helps to see it so you know what you're making there. I'm using contact cement for this project. This is just the one available in my local hardware store. There's some better brands available online. You know the contact cement is dry when it's no longer shiny. And here I'm showing you just very carefully, I'm lining up all the notch points. Those are just really critical. You just bend the foam as you glue the pieces together. If you don't line up the markings, then your final product will end up kind of wonky, lopsided. I bent the face mask into place, and now I'm going to dry fit the cheek plate. If there had been any problems with it, I would have hit it with a sanding Dremel just to get the bevels just right. I'm using parchment paper available in the grocery store to glue the pieces in. That's just so the contact cement won't glue before I want it to, so that I can kind of protect one side and focus on one side. The parchment paper just serves as a barrier, so it doesn't glue until I'm ready to glue it. You'll see that I'm lining up the notches very carefully. In this piece, you'll see that I glue the end first, because that's kind of the critical point, and then I'm going to go back and match up the middles. Now I'm going to kind of massage all the seams, make sure everything glued really well, and there it is. This is for the back of the mask. There's kind of a vent piece. I made that by layering 2mm craft foam, and now I'm going to glue it in at the very back of the helmet. It's kind of recessed, maybe 1/2 centimeter. Gluing all the pieces together to make the complete mask, and there it is. I'm going to work on the dome now. Notice I'm using a toothpick to get into some of those little tight spaces, because you really do need glue along the whole seam. And now I'm going to hit it with low heat. I'm always using low heat when I do EVA foam, because if you do high heat, you can burn the foam. And I'm using my knee here as an anvil. Be sure to wear old jeans, because some of the glue can transfer to your clothes. I've learned that the hard way. And this is the center strip to the helmet. Again, I'm kind of molding it and shaping it with heat to take on that dome shape that we're wanting. on these seams, take your time to do a good quality seam. It's worth it in foam working because fixing bad seams is time consuming and very difficult to get a good polished look. It's best just to have your seam as perfect up front as possible. So it's worth it to take your time. Now I'm gluing on the other half of the dome. Same deal, matching up all the notches. That means sometimes kind of squishing the foam a little. Sometimes it means stretching the foam a little to get those notches to line up. Foam is really forgiving. It can be stretched or scrunched or heated and bent, and it takes it really well. I really love working with this material, and it's inexpensive. So I love that. Okay, I'm gonna hit it with a little light heat just because that helps the whole thing relax into its new shape. I'm gonna do heat and then working it over my knee and heat. I'm gonna go back and forth. I'm gonna look at it until I get the dome shape uniform and what I want. Now we need to Dremel out a recess for the T-visor. And I'm using this very high grit or low grit Dremel barrel to really cut through the foam quickly. I'm wearing some safety goggles, a dust mask, very critical when you are Dremeling EVA foam. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to the front of the helmet. Everything that would be the T-visor needs to get Dremeled out. About 1 centimeter long and like 2 millimeters deep. And important to clean up all the dust because it can get in your glue and make your seams not glue very well. Now we're going to add the dome to the face mask. The face mask is beveled a little bit to make it kind of more a seamless dome shape. I give those dimensions in the pattern. Going to be very careful again. If at any time when you're applying heat or when you're like shaping the foam, if any of your seams pop open, it's really easy. Just take some contact cement on a toothpick and rub it in the area that has popped open, let it dry, and then you can reseal it. And then I'm hitting it with some light, cool heat just to let the whole thing relax into its new shape. Okay, these are the ear pieces. I'm showing you that I have sanded the back of it so it will glue well to the side of the helmet. We're gonna make the decorative line that's down the middle of it, and I'm doing that just by making like a 2 millimeter deep cut down the center and applying heat. And when you apply heat, and this is a little hotter heat, the foam will open up and make that sort of decorative cut. I've applied the little bevel to the bottom and I've cleaned it up with the Dremel. And now we are attaching it to the helmet. These are the little details on top of the ears. I'm using a leather punch here. You could also use a very sturdy hole punch, like a paper punch. And then with scissors, I'm cutting into that hole to make those arch shapes. And now I'm showing you that I've used like a very high grit sanding drum to kind of clean the edges off of some of these details to give it kind of a curved, polished look. And those are the earpieces, right and left. There's a little difference because the left one has the rangefinder. I'm gonna just clean it up a little. Okay, on this little detail, I'm doing what's called an undercut. This is where you cut a V out of the underside of the foam about 2/3 the way through the foam. And then that allows the foam to bend without cutting all the way through the surface of the foam. Now I'm gonna glue those little V cuts and seal them shut. And there's the right side done. The left side's a little tricky. This is a craft stick that I sandwiched between two circles of 2mm foam. And that's just going to use friction to kind of hold in place. When I squish it, the two pieces together, that circle is held in by friction.
The lighting is kind of making me look purple. Okay, so thinking about that, so there's this interesting thing that because this gray is blue tinted and not brown tinted, it makes my gray wig that is brown gray tinted instead of blue tinted.
I noticed the different owl helmets kind of had different details on the ears, so depending on the owl helmet you're making, you might want to make yours slightly different. And it also depends on which bo-katan helmet, because the bo-katan helmet in the Clone Wars is different than the one on the Mandalorian, the TV show. So, I mean, make it your own. Okay, I'm putting together the rangefinder here. I did that with 5mm craft foam. I beveled all the angles to get really nice lines. I don't know that you have to do that. You could probably just butt them against each other and get a very similar effect. But with contact cement, I'm gonna put it on the popsicle stick there, the craft stick. This is just a little square foam. I'm gonna kind of sandwich the craft stick between the rangefinder, the popsicle stick, and then this foam insert. And I'm gonna glue them all together, and that's gonna make the rangefinder stick to the helmet. And there it is. This back detail, I'm making it out of 2mm craft foam. I've also made helmets where I've made it out of the 5mm craft foam. I think it's just a how pronounced do you want it to be. The 2mm craft foam I like because it has a lot of give, and even it looks like it's gonna wave up and buckle up, but if you're just really careful and kind of, you know, pat it down, it will just like take the shape you need it to take. So that's what I'm doing here, just being really careful so I don't get any wrinkles in it. And there it is. Now for the T-visor, I'm using a replacement grinding shield that you can buy off Amazon. There's some other sort of stores online you can find these. First, I'm going to cut my pattern out on foam, and I'm going to dry fit it into the slot to make sure that the opening and the T-visor all lines up. Once I'm satisfied that I have the right shape, I'm going to cut out the T-visor with some sturdy scissors. And I'm gluing my T-visor in with contact cement. Normally I wouldn't glue the T-visor in at this point. I would do all the sealing and finishing of the helmet first, the painting and everything. But for the sake of this video and just to show you guys how it's done, I went ahead and put the T-visor in at this stage. But yeah, normally I would wait. I hope you've enjoyed building this cool helmet with me today. This pattern is available on my Etsy shop. It's less than $10. You'll also find just regular Mandalorian patterns on my Etsy shop. Come check it out.